Donald Trump and President Biden are taking different approaches to debate preparation ahead of Thursday night's showdown. President Biden has been at Camp David with his campaign team, led by former White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain. A source tells CBS News Biden has been participating in mock debates with his personal attorney, Bob Bauer, who is expected to be playing the role of Trump. Meanwhile, the former president has held a series of meetings with his allies to discuss his strategy against Biden. But his main focus has not been on debate prep holed up somewhere, but on the campaign trail, where he says speaking to voters and the media is the best prep. For more, let's bring in Philippe Reines. He is a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and a senior advisor to Hillary Clinton. He also helped prepare her for the presidential debates against Donald Trump in 2016. Philippe, I hope I got that pronunciation correct, and if I didn't, my apologies.
Close enough.
Let's hope the candidates pronounce better on Thursday night. You played Donald Trump in preparation with Hillary Clinton in 2016. How does one play the role of Donald Trump?
Well, I think at this point, 8 years later, we all unfortunately can do it because it's been the same thing. I watched a lot of tape of his debates in the Republican primaries, of his various rallies. I read a lot of transcripts of speeches or whatever he would call them. Also, I was a native New Yorker, so I sort of had him in the back of my mind growing up. But the one thing about Donald Trump is that he is a very predictable, unpredictable person. So once you kind of do the method acting of really just diving in, it's easy to absorb.
What is that? Talk more about that, predictable, unpredictable.
Well, I mean, you know, I think every American at this point can do a pretty good SNL imitation of him. He doesn't have a strategy. He has a list. His list is basically the things that he at any given point wants to get off his chest. They range from ranting about his election, his reelection, and what he thinks was taken from him, from his first impeachment during his first term to his second impeachment after his first term, to his criminal trials now, to being the gag orders, to I'm sure he will say on at the debate that he is being muted because people don't want to hear from him. He will act like he never heard or never agreed to the idea of muting. So the real question isn't what he will say, it's when he will say it and what order he will say it and how he will deliver it.
I think the big question that a lot of people are asking right now is what tone will he bring? Will he be the aggressive Trump that we saw in 2020 in that now infamous debate that a lot of people feel he lost and that took him down in the polls? Or does he try to act, for lack of a better word, a little more presidential, a little more reserved?
Well, you know, debates are not these distinct separate items from campaigns. And what I mean by that is the 2016 debates against Hillary reflected the 2016 campaign, meaning that Donald Trump, for all his bluster and obnoxious and exaggeration, to put it politely, he had a message of immigration, on Obamacare, on jobs leaving America. And he laced that into his rallies and he laced that into the debates. 2020, for his reelection, I don't know what his message was. I don't think he had one. He was just very angry. He was very angry at Bob Mueller. He was very angry at being impeached. He was very angry about COVID, that it was overwhelming him. He couldn't get the better of COVID. And that's what came across in that first debate, was just sheer anger and nothing beyond that.
He was he was trailing at the time, too. I think he was trying, there was maybe a strategy to make up some ground. As far as the format for the debate goes, it's an interesting one. Listen, I think Jake Tapper and Dana Bash will do a great job, but the rules are kind of odd, and I wonder if you think that's going to decrease the possibility of fireworks when I understand why microphones need to be muted so they're not interrupting each other constantly, but then commercial breaks. Does that make things a little more boring?
I do not think of all the words that are going to be used about this debate that boring is one of them. These two men, by the time Atlanta rolls around, will have not seen each other for 1,343 days, and they really don't like each other. The animosity that is going to be palpable from the moment they come on stage together to whether or not they even shake hands is going to permeate every interaction they have, whether one is mute or not. The muting, I actually think, is going to redound to everyone's favor, except for Donald Trump, because the moderators, as you just said, Jake and Dana, who are very good and very thoughtful journalists, will have a longer stretch of time to process what they've just heard. When the two candidates talk over each other, they can barely absorb what they're hearing, let alone put it through any kind of real-time fact check. So this will help, I think, keep the conversation a little bit straighter, a little bit more honest. But look, they can't, none of us could have another 2020 debate. It was pointless. It was one step away from a duel. And this hopefully will be better. And look, I think usually debates don't determine who wins, but they can very much help determine a loser. I think the president has a lot more opportunities here than the former president does, simply because the former president has been out of sight, out of mind. I know that sounds odd, but out of sight, at least, for so long, and he's been off social media in the sense of Twitter, that it's going to be a very stark reminder of what he is like, and he's going to be in this jam where the harder he goes after Joe Biden, whether it's personally, whether it's on policy, whether it's on a difference on immigration or inflation or the economy, the higher he revs that up, the more he's going to antagonize the people who ended up abandoning him in 2020 and who ultimately decided the race.
Real quickly, Philippe, would you agree there's more pressure on Biden?
I would not. Look, I think if either the candidate has a bad moment, which can be defined any which way, then yeah, it lingers. But the thing that people are looking for with President Biden, which they are looking for mostly because President Trump and his campaign and his party and the entire media apparatus of the right wing is looking for whether or not Joe Biden can stand up for 90 minutes. You know what? I don't know when I'm 81 when it is that I'm going to tune out a little bit, but I'll tell you when it won't be. When Donald Trump is 10 feet away from me, yelling and barking. I don't fall asleep at Kiss concerts. So the idea that there's going to be some moment in the debate that proves Donald Trump's point, I think is kind of silly. It's similar to the State of the Union, where Joe Biden came out, gave a robust, vigorous speech, and then Donald Trump said he was on drugs. And we're going through that. We're going through that same cycle again. I think the president has a bigger opportunity coming off of the trials because the people who seem to have softened in their support, they haven't abandoned President Trump and they haven't shifted to President Biden, but they are somewhat of a jump ball. And that is a huge opportunity for President Biden.
All right, Philippe, thanks for not bringing out your Trump voice. But I do appreciate the perspective. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jeff.